All right, so now we're in the implementation strategy section of the exam guide, and there's only 2 bullet points here, but it accounts for 19% of the weighting of the exam. And so we're going to talk about the different or typical phases of a consulting engagement. And when you deal with the Service Cloud, and this is much the same in the Sales Cloud exam as well, if you look at that exam guide, there's different phases to a consulting engagement, whether you're dealing with Sales or Service Cloud, and that's planning, gathering requirements, designing, building, testing, and then finally documenting. And so we're going to speak a little bit about some of our scenario that we're going to be creating. And throughout the duration of this course, we're going to be going through these different phases. In this point, we're going to be planning some of this that we're going to be building through the course. And then we're also going to talk about some of the requirements that we would typically be gathering. And then in the following sections, we'll be designing, building, testing, and documenting what we've done, as we layer in the knowledge that you need to understand in these other sections of the exam guide, as well as we dive deeper into like solution design. If you notice, this next section having to do with the Service Cloud solution design is one of the phases of a consulting engagement. And so when we talk about planning and gathering requirements, you may have heard of the agile methodology or gathering user stories or user requirements, and you may run into that in your own consulting engagements. And so in our own scenario, and I'm going to switch over into Salesforce now as we talk about what we're planning to build throughout this course, we're wanting to provide greater Service Cloud functionality for our customers. And one thing that we're going to build would be that of a survey. And this will be a custom object that we create. And the idea behind this survey is we want to measure customer satisfaction, or CSAT. And so with the structure of this, as we're planning and designing this solution, we want to be able to do surveys that belong to an account. And so this custom object of survey needs to have a master detail relationship up to account. And then also we want to have a lookup field on the survey to where we can connect this survey to an individual contact that belongs to an account. So for example, I'm in this sample account called United Oil and Gas Corp, and I want to be able to survey my different contacts that belong to this account. And so this custom object that we're going to create is called survey, and this is a very common scenario you'll deal with in the Service Cloud. And so one of the first things or typical phases of a consulting engagement is you would be gathering requirements. So a couple of the main things that I've just mentioned is it needs to have a master detail relationship to the account and have a lookup to the contact. So let's do that now. So if you go into setup and we're in Lightning Experience, in order to create a new object, you need to go into the object manager, which can be found under objects and fields in setup, and then click the create and select custom object. This takes you to the new custom object screen, and it still looks a little bit like Salesforce Classic and behaves much the same. And so we want to label this survey. Then the plural label will be surveys. It does not start with a vowel sound. And then for the description, I'm going to go ahead and write in some of the requirements that we've gathered from our user stories. All right, and so we're going to leave the default for the help setting. You could do a Visualforce page to provide context-sensitive help instead, but we're just going to leave that the default. For the record name, we're going to change this to an auto number. And then the display format, we're just going to call it survey dash and then start the numbering with 1 and have it increment from there. We're going to allow reports and activities and track field history and allow these survey records inside of chatter groups. We're going to keep these other object classification check marks checked. We're going to check this as in deployed status instead of in development, and then we're going to allow search so that these records can be searched. We are going to add notes and attachments related list to the default page layout. This is available only when the custom object is first created. I usually go ahead and check these because you can always remove this later, but you can't add this notes and attachments related list later. So I'd rather add it now and remove it than want to add it and not be able to. So I'm going to click save to create this custom object called survey. As you'll see, then the next step in this wizard is I need to create a tab style or select a tab style for the survey. And so I'm going to just look for something like a pencil and then click next. The next step is I'm going to apply one tab visibility to all profiles, and that's default on. And then I'm going to click next, and then I'm going to add this tab to the service console in Lightning and the sample console standard service console, and then also this service application as well, and click save. If we go into the app launcher and we click on service, we should see this survey tab. So now we have our surveys tab, which we can click on. We've not created any surveys, we've not created any fields either. And so if you click on all surveys, you will see none because there's none that have been created. If you click new, the only fields you will see are basically none because it's auto-populated with the name field and its numbering. So I'm going to click save and save an empty survey. And we've got our survey 0001 that I've just created. In order for a survey to be usable, you need to be able to add some fields to this object. And so while we're here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back into setup and back into the object manager. And we're going to select the recent record of survey. This is the recent object that we've dealt with. And so if we go into fields and relationships for the survey, we can click new, and then we can do a master detail. Now remember, this is a child record belonging to the account, and so we're going to relate this to the account object and click next. So I've related this field to the account object, it's master detail relationship, and then the field name is just going to be called account. The child relationship name, this has to do with what the related list will appear as on the account page layout, and we'll just call this surveys. We could call it CSAT surveys, and that would just be what it shows on the account page layout. This wouldn't be changing the name of the object though. And so we can also create a filter to limit the records available to users in the lookup field. We're not going to do that on this one, but we'll do it on the next field that we create. I'll show you that here in a moment. So I'm going to click next. I'm going to make this account field visible to all profiles, and I'm going to make this new field available on the page layout and click next, and it will be added to the related list. Finally, here is the related list label. And so as I mentioned, I could call this CSAT surveys, and this is just the display on the related list, and we could add that to the page layouts for accounts. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and append this related list to users' existing personal customization. So if someone has overridden their page layout with a personal customization, this would push this change out to their personal customization and add this related list to their account page layout. All right, and so here's a pet peeve of mine with Salesforce, and this is a good, I guess, error that I've stumbled upon, is by me creating one of those survey records, there's data that already exists on the custom object. And so I've got to first create a lookup relationship, populate the lookup field with data in all the records, and then I can change the relationship to master detail. So I can click here to return to the previous page, and what I can do is, this really should be prompted at the first step when I selected master detail, but it waits until the very end to tell you that you can't do this. That may be actually a scenario that's on the exam, and so it's good for you to know that and experience that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the service app and select that survey and delete it. So I've deleted the survey record. So now I'm going to go in and try and create that field again and see if it will let us, even though that record is still in the recycle bin. So we're doing a little bit of testing here to see if we can get away with this or not. So I go into the object manager, I'm going to select the survey object once again and do what I did before as far as for fields and relationships, and create new, and it's a master detail relationship, and there must not be any records already existing for this object in order to be able to do this. So I'm selecting that I'm going to relate this to account, and then click next, and then tab over to fill in the API name and then child relationship name. This is what the actual API name would be for internal reference. The related list name comes later, so I misspoke a little bit earlier. So you could call this in the child relationship name for the API CSAT surveys. Not going to add a lookup filter. We're going to click next. We're going to click next. We're going to click next. And we're going to click save and new. So now let us create that master detail relationship. There is just the one record residing in the recycle bin, so we're not blocked from creating that master detail relationship. So now I'm going to create a lookup relationship and click next. I'm going to relate this to contact and click next. So on the survey, I have a master detail up to account and then a lookup to contact. So I'm going to call this survey contact with an underscore in between and leave the defaults here for this lookup filter. So for the lookup filter, what's helpful is a lot of times you can find what you're looking for in lookup filters by clicking insert suggested criteria. We want the account that the contact belongs to match the survey account. So what I mean by that is once you've selected an account that you're creating the survey for, and you'll normally do this from the account record, you'll click new survey. So you've got the account ID on the survey, you want the contact records that you're looking for to belong to the same account so that you're not selecting a Jim Doe that belongs to a different account than the account that you're doing the survey for. So I'm going to click insert, and so now we have our filter criteria and we can add filter logic. And so for this filter logic here, as far as the filter type, you can do required. The user entered value must match the filter criteria. So you can block users from entering in contacts that don't belong to this account, or you can make it optional to where they can override that and go, yeah, I know that this person does not belong to this account, but I'm going to go ahead and enter a survey for them anyways and associate it with this account. I don't think that's a good idea, so we're going to leave this required and change this criteria. And you can also add informational message to the lookup window, and then you can activate and deactivate that filter by toggling this checkbox. So I'm enabling the filter and I'm clicking next. And I'll show you how this works in action here in a moment. I'm going to leave these defaults checked and click next, add it to the page layout, and then the related list. This will be on the contact page layout. So if this person has been surveyed, then the related list will be surveys, meaning here's the surveys that they appear in. So I'm going to click save, and I'm done creating my 2 custom fields on my new custom object of survey. So we've done a new custom object called survey. We've done a master detail up to account from the survey object, and then a lookup to contact with a filter. And so if we go back into the service application, we can create a survey. I'm going to click down arrow and click new survey. And I'm going to have this be belonging to United Oil and Gas Corp. Let me cancel out of this actually. Let me go into the account. This would be more likely how you would create a new survey is you would go from the account or potentially from the contact record, but we're going to go from the account record and we're going to scroll down to the surveys related list. And so for the surveys for United Oil and Gas Corp, we're going to click new, and then that will associate with United Oil and Gas Corp. And so let me cancel out of here and see who my contacts are. So we've got Stella Pavlova. So let me search for her when I create a new survey. So once again, we've got United Oil and Gas Corp, and I'm going to search for Stella. And actually, when I click on it, it brings her up as someone belonging to United Oil and Gas. So if I do Stella, search for her, I can select her. Now, if I were to select someone that doesn't belong to United Oil and Gas, such as Jim Doe, he doesn't appear. I could create a new contact at this point, but if I were to try and save this, it's saying an invalid option has been chosen. Review the errors on this page. And so I need to select someone who belongs to United Oil and Gas Corp. That's our filter in action to prevent us from having contacts that don't belong to the account. And so bearing in mind that we're talking about gathering requirements, designing a solution, and we're doing actually some of the building piece of this as well, which are all typical phases of a service cloud engagement. And so you're beginning to see how you can quickly build a solution once you've got valid requirements in place and have designed and thought through how you want to do this. And so we've done quite a lot in this particular lecture, and now we see that we have our survey. We see that the auto numbering picked back up at 0002 because 01 had been created and is in the recycle bin. We see now the page layout has the account. That's the master detail up to United Oil and Gas Corp. It has the lookup to the contact record that belongs to the account, and it has the last modified and created by information. Here's the related list for the notes and attachments that I had the one shot of adding during the custom object creation. If I wanted to add additional attachments or scans, for instance, I could do that on this custom object. And so now we've built a very rudimentary solution for surveying our customers, and we're going to be adding additional fields later having to do with customer satisfaction. Remember, the end goal is we're trying to measure CSAT, customer satisfaction. And so for the next lecture, though, as we're dealing with implementation strategies specifically, we want to talk about contact center deployment strategies.